Good morning. Welcome to morning meditation. It is Thursday after Ash Wednesday, so we are in the Lenten season. May God bless your Lent. We're given a gift today of Saint Catherine Drexel. And when they merged the schools here in St. Cloud a couple of years ago, maybe 2007 or 8 or 10 or somewhere in there, they chose new names, and so the old St. Aug's School, St. Augustine's School, became St. Catherine Drexel. And what a fitting saint for an education place. And really, I probably should do more than this, but I'm pretty much just going to read you the Wikipedia article because the person who wrote it, I think, did a great job on it. And there's just a lot happened in her life. And so we'll just go with it. We're just going to go with it. And I got to get back to the year she was born. And she was born November 26th, 1858. And so this is context. This is 2 years before the Civil War. Born in Philadelphia. Born to Hannah, wife of banker Francis Drexel, Hannah Langstroth, wife of banker Francis Drexel. She was expected to enter high school society as an adult. She was expected to enter high society as an adult, becoming known. I'm in the wrong spot. There it is. Drexel was born in Philadelphia, 1858, the second child of investment banker Francis Drexel and Hannah Langstroth. Hannah died 5 weeks after her daughter's birth. For 2 years, Catherine and her sister Elizabeth were cared for by their aunt and uncle, Ellen and Anthony. When her father Francis married Emma Bouvier in 1860, he brought his 2 daughters home. A third daughter, Louisa, was born in 1863. The girls were educated at home by private tutors. Their father believed that they should learn geography firsthand. Accordingly, their parents took the girls on periodic tours of the United States and Europe. 3 times a week, the Drexel family distributed food, clothing, and rent assistance from their family home in Philadelphia. When widows or single women were too proud to come to the Drexels for assistance, the family quietly sought them out. As Emma taught her daughters, kindness may be unkind if it leaves a sting behind. As a young and wealthy woman, Drexel made her social debut in 1878. She would have been 20 that year. However, watching her stepmother's 3-year struggle with terminal cancer taught her the Drexel money could not buy safety from pain or death. Her life took a profound turn. She had always been interested in the plight of Native Americans, having been appalled by what she read in Helen Hunt Jackson, A Century of Dishonor. When her family traveled to the western states in 1884, Catherine saw the plight and poverty of the Native Americans. She wanted to do something specific to help. Thus began her lifelong personal and financial support of numerous missions and missionaries in the United States. After her father died in February of 1885, and so, as we count these people up, that's a mother in 1858, that's a stepmother in, what year was that? 1878, or 1880, somewhere in there, and then in 1885. So by the time she's 27 years old, she's lost 2 mothers and her father. After her father died in February of 1885, Catherine and her sisters contributed money to help the St. Francis Mission on South Dakota's Rosebud Reservation. For many years, she took spiritual direction from a longtime family friend, Father James O'Connor, a Philadelphia priest who later was appointed Vicar Apostolic of Nebraska, which I think would have been a pretty large tract of land because the Franciscan media today said this was in Wyoming as well, and I just wonder if that Nebraska vicariate would have been Nebraska and Wyoming. It would have been probably a large piece out there. When Catherine wrote him of her desire, so he's out in Nebraska, or in that area, somewhere in that area. When Nebraska wrote him of her desire to join a contemplative order, and so this would be an order that she stayed mainly in the monastery, Bishop O'Connor suggested, wait a while longer. Wait and pray. Drexel and her sister Elizabeth and Louisa were still mourning their father when they sailed to Europe in 1886. Their high-powered banker father left behind a $15.5 million estate and instructions to divide it among his 3 daughters after expenses and specific charitable donations. However, to prevent his daughters from falling prey to fortune hunters, quote unquote, her father, Francis, crafted his will so that his daughters controlled income from his estate. Still upon their death, their inheritance flowed to their children. It couldn't go to the husband. The will stipulated that there were no grandchildren upon his daughters' deaths. Drexel's estate would be distributed to several religious orders and charities. So this becomes the fascinating thing, right? If they don't have grandchildren, they can use the money while they're alive. But if they don't have grandchildren, the money's going to go to charity. To the Society of Jesus, of course, that's the Jesuit, the Christian Brothers, and the Religious of the Sacred Heart, a Lutheran hospital, and others. Because their father's charitable donations totaled about $1.5 million, this is from the original, the sisters shared income produced by $14 million. And so $1,000 a day for each woman. So $14 million makes you quite a bit of cash. About $365,000 a year. And so, they were making $1 million. That's only 3%, so that's a pretty modest. And so in current dollars, the estate would be worth $400 million. And they'd be splitting up, what is that? 3% of 400, they'd be splitting $12 million between the 3 of them each year to use, so $4 million per person, per child, $12 million. Crazy stuff. Drexel's father had been on board. Had been on the board of both St. John's Orphan Asylum for Boys and St. Joseph's Female Orphan Asylum. And of course, they had that period where they went to live with their aunt and uncle, so they kind of understood this as their mother died, and the father didn't feel able to take care of them at that moment. Louisa was particularly concerned as the future of the young men after they left the orphanage. She and Elizabeth founded the St. Francis Industrial School at Eddington, Pennsylvania, in honor of their father. So St. Francis, of course, her father was Francis. St. Francis Industrial School at Eddington. Elizabeth, her older sister, died in 1890 from complications of childbirth. In 1889, Louisa married General Ed Morrill. The Morrills actively promoted and advanced the welfare of African Americans throughout the country. The Morrills used their wealth to build magnificent institutions that served and aided African Americans' education and upward mobility. General Morrill took charge of the Native American work, while Catherine Drexel was in her novitiate. And so, there's a lot happens in her life, and it's hard to keep the timeline. So her sister marries in 1889. In 1887, the sisters went to see Pope Leo XIII. They asked him for missionaries to staff some Native American missions they had been financing. To their surprise, the Pope suggested that Catherine become a missionary herself. Although Catherine had already received marriage proposals, after consultation with her spiritual director, again the same guy, this Bishop O'Connor, she decided to give herself totally to God along with her inheritance through service to Native American Indians and Afro-Americans. Her uncle, Anthony, tried to dissuade her from entering religious life. That was the one who had taken care of her when she was young. But she entered the Sisters of Mercy convent in Pittsburgh in 1889 and began her postulancy. Her decision rocked Philadelphia's social circles. The Philadelphia Public Ledger carried this headline: Miss Drexel enters a Catholic convent, gives up $7 million. There we are. In 1891, Catherine professed her first vows as a religious sister, dedicating herself to work among the Native Americans and African Americans in the West and Southwest. She took the name Mother Catherine and soon established a religious congregation, the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Until a convent was built in 1892, the sisters moved into St. Elizabeth Convent. Mother Cabrini, of course, she becomes St. Frances Cabrini, meets Mother Drexel and advises her about getting her order, how to get her order passed by the Vatican. And we did Mother Cabrini not that long ago. She was great at getting things done, just fantastic. A few months later, Philadelphia Archbishop Ryan blessed the cornerstone of the new Mother House in Cornwells Heights, Pennsylvania. In the first of many incidents that indicated Drexel convictions for social justice were not shared by all, a stick of dynamite was discovered near the site. Requests for help and advice reached Mother Catherine from various parts of the United States. After 3.5 years of training, she earned her first band of nun, opened a boarding school called St. Catherine's Indian School in Santa Fe. In 1897, Mother Drexel asked the friars of St. John the Baptist, Providence of the Orders of Friar Minor, the Franciscans in Cincinnati, to staff a mission among the Navajos in Arizona and New Mexico, on a 160-acre tract of land she had purchased. Mother Catherine stretched the Cincinnati friars apostolically, since most of them previously had worked in predominantly German-American parishes. A few years later, she also helped finance the friars' work among the Pueblo Native Americans in New Mexico. In 1910, she funded the printing of 500 copies of a Navajo English Catechism of Christian Doctrine for the use of Navajo children. About 100 friars from St. John the Baptist in Cincinnati started Our Lady of Guadalupe province, headquartered in Albuquerque. They continue to work on the Navajo reservations with the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Catherine established 145 missions, 50 schools for African Americans, 12 schools for Native Americans. Xavier University in New Orleans, the only historically black Catholic college, also owes its existence to Drexel and the sisters. And at 77, she gets a heart attack or a stroke, and for 20 years, just kind of writes things and is limited in her activity. But for the next 20 years, just beautifully talked of God's presence among us. Her cause for beatification was introduced in 1966. She dies in 1955. I think maybe I said that. In Cornwells Heights in Pennsylvania. Her cause for beatification was introduced in 1966. John Paul II declared Drexel venerable in 1987, beatified her in 1988, After concluding that Robert Guthorman was miraculously cured of deafness in 1974, after his family prayed for Mother Drexel's intercession. She was canonized on October 1st. That's the feast of the Little Flower, right? Was canonized on October 1st. One of only a few U.S.-born saints and the first natural native-born. So she was born in Philadelphia. She's the first native-born U.S. citizen saint. Of course, Cabrini was born in Italy, but became a U.S. citizen. Ann Seton, Elizabeth Ann Seton, of course, as well, was born in what became the United States, canonized in 1975. Canonization occurred after the Vatican determined that 2-year-old Amy Wall had miraculously been healed of nerve deafness in both ears through her intercession in 1994. The Vatican cited fourfold aspects of Drexel's legacy: a love of the Eucharist and perspective on the unity of all peoples. And Mother Teresa, of course, would talk about this being the cornerstone, right, of her. How do you love sick and dying people? What's the love of the Eucharist? Love of Eucharist and perspective on the unity of all peoples. Courage and initiative in addressing social inequality among minorities. 100 years before such concern aroused huge public interest in the United States. Her belief in quality education for all and efforts to achieve it. Selfless serving, including the donation of her inheritance for the victims of injustice. If you want to visit something, the St. Catherine Drexel Mission Center National Shrine is located in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. And so her tomb is there in the St. Elizabeth Chapel, and that would be a blessing. And they list the parishes named after her. After only be canonized in 2000, already 15 or 20 parishes are named after her. I just wanted to see if there it is. St. Catherine Drexel School of St. Cloud and Sauk Rapids, Minnesota is listed in the Wikipedia article as being named after St. Catherine Drexel. So great history on her, just a tremendous blessing to have her as a local patron here in town. And her story is, of course, fantastic. Many, many schools also have been named. I shouldn't say many, but it looks like a good dozen as a quick overview of that. So certainly she has had an impact here locally and in the United States with just her great story. And, of course, that first Native American mission, Native American reservation that she helped finance was in South Dakota. So she is certainly close to our area in that way. All right, blessings. Thank you for this day. Thank you for joining us for morning meditations, Tuesday through Friday, 9 o'clock.